is Jamie Rose. If you are unfamiliar with me and you got sent this video, cool. I'm assuming the only people who are ever going to see it are people that know me. Every fall, I, being of Italian heritage, make pasta sauce, and I usually post these Saturday night videos to say it is the season for Italians to be making sauce. And people always ask me, like, what's your recipe? How do you do it? And I am going to say right now, I have no idea if this is the end all be all. I am sure that, like, the Barefoot Contessa would probably say that I'm not doing this right, but this is how I make pasta sauce. And typically when it comes time for harvest season, I make a whole bunch of it. I package it up and I freeze it, and we use it throughout the year. So I'm going to walk you through the ingredients first, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do with the lovely little meat grinder over here that I use for the tomatoes to make the sauce. So first up, we obviously have tomatoes, and I typically use, move those onions out of the way, I typically use every kind of tomato possible. So you see there's cherry tomatoes at the top, there are Roma tomatoes in there, just about anything that you can get your hands on. I leave the skins on, I leave the seeds in. The only thing I do is take off the tops, of the green stuff. That doesn't go in, but I don't carve out the outer edge or anything like that. It's pretty much just tomatoes. Make sure you wash them nicely so that there's not, I found bird feathers in there. There was a whole bunch of stuff. Next, I just harvested a bunch of parsley from the garden. And I have all of my basil that I just chopped down from my herb garden. And I'm just going to peel that basil off really easily. You just kind of run your hands down, grab a couple of leaves. I throw them into the herb bowl. I put raw garlic in, usually about 2 to 3 heads, and peel all of the skin off of them, and they just kind of go into the big grinder pile right there. The only other thing I put in is salt. So there is a little bit of salt. I don't use a ton. I don't use any oil. I don't put any other seasoning, no pepper, anything like that. Now, if you don't have a huge harvest this year and you want to, you can add in some canned stuff. Why not? It makes a lot of the really fresh stuff come in with the canned. Now, I will tell you that if you're going to do this, make sure you're monitoring the salt content, because if you put a whole bunch of salt in and the cans have salt in it, it's going to be way overly salted. So those are their basic ingredients. And then the last thing is onions. I use onions. Now, this is my pride bundle here. What you're seeing right here, this gigantic thing, I have been growing all summer long. These are scallion tips. So I cut the tips off of scallions earlier in the year. I planted them in a pot. I've been watering them this whole time, and they are gigantic. I am going to just cut them all up. They're all going to go into the bowl, and they just get mashed into the meat grinder. I use this really big bowl. It kind of sits right under here. So once I start putting all the tomatoes up here. I mash them down. They come out the bottom. I'm using a very large grinder whole thing. This is the second one that I use. So once it goes through once, it's got the bigger holes in it. It's kind of mashed up a lot, but it hasn't really chopped up the seeds yet. So typically I grind this twice. Now, if I were going to be putting in some meat, which, sometimes we do, we'll put in ground beef. We just mash it in with the tomatoes and it grinds everything up. Then we do it 3 times, which my husband calls Mama Rose's triple grind, because we've ground the tomatoes and the herbs and the onions and garlic twice, and then we'll put in the meat and we'll do it for the 3rd time. We didn't do that last year. We just did straight tomato sauce. I will tell you, when you've got all the skins and everything like that, it does get it's a little sour, it's a little bitter. So typically when that comes out of the freezer, comes out in these little freezer bags, I don't can, just because of space reasons. I just put them into wet freezer bags, seal them. I use a food saver, and they go stacked up into the freezer for all winter and summer long. And then when it comes out, that's when I add all of the different spices that you might want for the sauce. So maybe a little bit of sugar, maybe a little bit of, you can put balsamic vinegar, you can put red wine in, you can put more garlic, more onions, always a Parmesan rind, at least one in there. And then, you just simmer that sauce and it smells great. So these are the raw ingredients. We're going to get to the point where after I've chopped this all up and everything's ready to go, it's just going to be in this big pile, and I'll show you how I kind of grind it in at the end. All right, we'll go to the next step. Okay, so we have everything all chopped up. We've got all of the onions and the herbs right here. We've got all of the tomatoes right here. I've loaded some already into the meat grinder. If you want to throw in some extras, we can do that right now. It's going to get really loud, but basically all you do is you just turn it on. And I like to mix a little bit of the green, a little bit of the tomatoes, put it all together. And you'll see it is starting to just chunk right out here. I'll try to get a close-up shot for you. Now, a couple of things to think about. One, this takes a really long time, especially to do it a couple of times in a row. The first part is the hardest part when it's all of this stuff, but I highly recommend having some wine. Also, I recommend science fiction to watch with it. Typically, we have batches of pasta downstairs that were called Stargate, Psych, and Haven batches. So, it's entirely up to you what you're watching. I think there might have even been a Magicians in there at one point. So, whatever, put on some TV, put on some noise-canceling earphones, and just sit here and keep grinding away. I'll do a really quick tight shot just so you can kind of see what it looks like. When this is done, you'll see it's just kind of goopy. It's still really chunky. And so that's why you want to do it a couple of times in the grinder. That's it. It's really simple. I think people make this a little bit harder than they should. I think that this makes it easy. You could do it in a blender. It just takes like forever to make that get done. But I hope you enjoy your pasta sauce. Find your friends and family to donate the tomatoes, get together, everybody open up a bottle of wine and just, kind of grind away. And happy fall, everybody.